setup is a little different. Just trying something else. I mentioned I have a lot of noise around my home right now. So I am looking into possibly some soundproofing to make this a little bit more of a pleasant experience, both with the creating videos while I'm filming and for you, of course. Like right now, I'm pretty sure you may be able to hear my cat eating in the background. And that's also why I have a mic this close to hopefully I've been able to change some settings and hopefully we won't hear as much background noise. Anyway, to the wine. Here is a Rosé from California, and it is here a 2022 made from Trousseau Gris is the grape variety. And here comes the jingling cat. So this wine, like I said, is made in California. And the grape variety is Trousseau Gris. So Trousseau Gris is, I'll give you a little bit of some education on it, is a mutation of the grape Trousseau, which is a black grape. Trousseau Gris is a gray mutation of Trousseau, which is a variety that originated in France. And Trousseau Gris in California specifically used to be referred to as a gray Riesling before they knew what it was. And I mean, that's the great thing about being able to do DNA testing with grapes, is finding out things like this. This is a mutation of Trousseau and not what, they were calling gray Riesling, even though I'm sure they knew it wasn't exactly Riesling. And Trousseau, the original grape, not Trousseau Gris, Trousseau itself. Sorry, we have a visitor. And that variety is known in the Charente, now in eastern France. And that variety most likely originated somewhere in eastern France, Switzerland, or northern Italy. And it's a little lesser known among like wine connoisseurs and people who just enjoy wine, I'd say outside of France. And let's get back to Trousseau Gris again. So species-wise, this is a Vitis vinifera. And not all wine grapes are vinifera, but a majority of the ones you would know, your Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay are. And that's just a little bit for you to learn about the grape variety. I do think the producer has a really fun note that they actually put it on their website to talk about the color of this grape, because it is called Trousseau Gris or Gray Trousseau. But so they, in this vineyard that they work with to make this wine, they harvest in batches, and then so they get their grapes from the harvest, and they come in like this array of different colors. colors. So this grape comes and it's green and purple and orange and all different like hues of those colors. So I think that's just some fun imagery. I love being able to create that for guests when they're enjoying their wine, and I think it's really fun. The producer is doing this too, and give people a little bit more knowledge on wine and how it's made. And this producer packs also has a pretty heavy focus on environmental sustainability, which I love. And their wines are incredible. These are some of my personal favorites, and professionally speaking, very, very fun to play around with and to pair with foods. And this one, so what they do is they have all different vineyards they're working with, right? And they have all these different vineyards they're working with, right? And this one, for the Trousseau Gris, I believe they acquired this vineyard in about 2009. And it's farmed organically, but not certified. And that may be, okay, maybe they don't quite reach the qualifications for it, or more likely they just don't care about the certifications, which is more normal than you would think in the industry among winemakers. Oh my goodness, especially if you go back to places like these French and Italian people who've been doing this for so long. They're like, well, that's how you make quality wine. Why would I do it any differently? Why would I care about some label on this? This is what I do. I do it because I know it makes better wine. And it's kind of growing. There's more people who care less and less about it. There's other producers. I was speaking to a winemaker a couple days ago, and he was telling me that what he sees, and he's in California too, just in a different area. He's a little bit further north from where these guys are. And he was saying that some of these certifications are a little bit better because some of these bigger places are actually, notice that in the market it helps them, so they are doing it. So it's pushing some people to do things a little bit more sustainably than they normally would. So you know what, I'm all for it if people are going to do it. But there are, again, many, many wines out there that are made with environmental practices, but just don't have the certifications, and that is not at all a problem. So this one, the vineyard site is in the Russian River Valley in Sonoma County, California. So let's go ahead and taste the wine. Now, I opened this yesterday just to go ahead and try it and to see how it was tasting, and honestly wanted to see how it held up after a day, and then I get to see again tomorrow after 2 days. So it's still smelling very fresh. It's a lot of fruit characteristic that's coming up first rather than like a mineral earthiness, though there is a bit of that. It almost smells a little bit salty. And it smells kind of like it's going to be sweet. So this is where I see people who say, oh, I don't really like wine that's sweet, or because they really don't like this. They don't like this like ripe fruit that's coming through, but it's still dry, and I'll explain that a little bit more. Or it's the exact opposite. If they go, oh yeah, I like wine that's like kind of sweet, but they don't actually mean sweetness sugar-wise, they mean ripe fruit. And so that's what this smells like to me. And then as I taste it, yes, it's still ripe. It's not overly ripe. It doesn't taste like, you know, when fruit starts to get that bruised characteristic to it. It doesn't taste like that. I've had plenty of wines from California, mostly mass-produced things, not like from quality producers like Pax, that taste like it's all just bruised, and that's actually come from potentially sunburned grapes. So that's something that can happen. I have seen that with Chardonnay, and it's something that some people actually really like those wines, and you know what? Great for them. Good, keep drinking it if you want to drink it. Not my personal taste. But this wine is technically dry, and it's pretty fun because on the nose it does smell more sweet, as in like ripe, than it does on the palate, but just slightly. I would still call this a pretty ripe characteristic on the palate. And back to the kind of explaining that sweetness thing. When professionally we're talking about sweetness in wine, we're talking about actual, like, measurable sugar levels, and that's what we would call like residual sugar, and we measure that by grams per liter. So as an example, this bottle has 750 milliliters, so that's 0.75 liters, but we're measuring it grams per liter. So say I had a bottle that's, you know, decently sweet, you could definitely taste it. That would be, you know, say it was 30 grams per liter residual sugar. There's less than 30 grams of sugar in the whole bottle. But, you know, that's 75% of that. And that's noticeable, very, very noticeable sweetness. Usually with like just a couple grams, like up to 3 grams per liter, non-professionals probably won't notice it. And a little bit above that, you might notice, oh yeah, I tasted a little bit. It might not come off as sweetness to you. And then when you get up more like 5, 6, 7, you can start to kind of notice that sweetness in there. And the sugar, obviously, is just coming from the grapes. There are some areas that might not have laws. Most, like, quality wines are not going to do this. Except for in some areas, and in the case, usually in very cold wine-growing regions, there may be sugar added. But here's the catch. It's sugar added to increase the alcohol level, not to increase sweetness. Because to make alcohol, we have sugar and then yeast. It's a lot more complicated than that, but pretty much yeast and sugar, you put that together, boom, it creates an alcoholic fermentation. And sometimes we have residual sweetness, but this wine, it's 12.5% alcohol. It's not like noticeably sweet, but it is beautiful. It's very fruity. It's very fresh. I'm going to be honest, this does not taste or feel like it's 12.5% alcohol. It tastes and feels like it's less. It feels like I'm just drinking juice with a little bit of booze. This is kind of dangerous. It's like, I don't want to be rude, but it's in the best way. If you could make like the most amazing rosé sangria that you could possibly think of, that's kind of what this tastes like, but better. This is a warm day, just sit out and drink this whole bottle and eat a block of cheese kind of wine. Which, by the way, if we're talking about pairings, this would be really nice with some manchego. I think it would also be pretty nice with Parmesan. But with that, if you did like a cheese board and you had a Parmesan Reggiano you need something in there with some kind of herbaceous note to kind of balance that out. So I don't know. Yeah, it could be really good with goat cheese too if you had, that herbed goat cheese. Great, but oh no, I'm trying to think, even if you had like a bread with, oh, what's great is, if you've ever had just really, really good small production olive oil, that's almost like has a kick to it. Almost feels like there's a little bit of spice in it. One of my favorite olive oils comes from Spain, and that's exactly how it tastes. So that infused with a little bit of some herbs, and I'm thinking like marjoram and rosemary and an olive oil with a really nice bread, and then those cheeses and this wine. Oh my goodness, I'd be in heaven. That's amazing. I love it. Oh, I'm so hungry now. Okay, I'm going to finish this off pretty quickly because there's quite a bit of noise around. It's getting a little heavier here. So to let you know a bit more about just the production of what they do, they fermented this in concrete vats. So yes, so concrete is used more often than you might think, and more so, I'll talk about it quickly in the aging process, more so than in the fermentation process. So when concrete is used to age wine, it really lends to the texture overall because it's porous, just like oak is, and it works pretty similarly to used oak. Speaking of, this wine is also aged 4 months in